Very few times in life do you actually get a chance to listen to veterans in the society. And when I talk about veterans, I truly mean veterans. How often do you really get to hear stories about picking garbage to building brands? Not really. Today's podcast is with David Appasamy. I am fortunate enough to be having done this, and you're going to be seeing something beautiful, and I hope you enjoy it. My name is Pratap, and welcome to One Heart, One Beat. Hi David, welcome to One Heart, One Beat.
Thank you, excited to be here.
Thank you so much. We were just talking outside, and I was actually mesmerized by your story of where you grew up, the kind of villages that you grew up from, the town that you came from. I would love for you to actually let us know, where did you grow up? What was life while growing up for David? And how did you feel coming to Chennai?
Those are good memories. I grew up in Madurai and Trichy, and Madurai actually in my early years. I did kindergarten to about second or third standard in Madurai at the Noise English School, as it was called. And we lived on the edge of town, and from the backyard we had the barbed wire fence, and then green fields, villages, palm trees, and the hills in the distance.
Oh, wow.
So after school we grew up playing in the fields, catching fish in the irrigation channels, swimming in the irrigation canals, and even in the irrigation wells, So it was a great boyhood. And we used to go to school by bus, and I remember the bus fare used to be 10 paise. And those were the TVS buses in those days when you had private bus operators. And that's how TVS began, by the way.
Just for my understanding, what year are we talking?
So we are talking about the 60s.
Amazing. How far was school?
School was a good 4 kilometers away, which in those days, because towns were small, was considered a very long distance.
You traveled by bus. What did you actually do that time? 10 paise fare? Home to school is about 20 minutes in that time?
Well, my brother and I used to try and grab a window seat. We used to sit practically on each other's laps and look out of the window. The bus started, the terminus was near our house. So you had to walk there, and the bus would come and turn around. So we would always have window seats going to school. Coming back wasn't that way, but that was all right. You looked forward to getting home. So
you talked about your brother. Can you tell us a little bit about your family?
Yeah, we are a family of 6, dad and mom, of course, and 3 brothers and 1 sister. They're all elder.
Okay.
And I'm the youngest. And my sister's the eldest. So, and we range in age, she's 15 years older than I am. So it's in descending order, so to speak. Oh. And I was the last one.
How does it be the youngest sibling? What's been the biggest learning of being a youngest sibling? Growing up at that time, obviously.
You learn to make do, because I would be the one who didn't get new clothes. I would always get Paul's clothes when he outgrew them. I'd get his clothes, his shoes. Yeah. It was like an inheritance that came to me. So now my sister didn't have that problem because she was the only girl.
Yeah.
So
what happened after school? What did you want to become when you were younger? Now we obviously know you as David who works with us, works at Social Beat, does amazing campaigns. When you were 15, 14, what did you want to become?
So I must tell you that I grew up reading a whole range of books, and this was the 60s, which was just about 15 years after the Second World War. So we were brought up on a lot of books about the war and the war heroes and the war stories. And I was particularly fascinated by air races. In Germany in the First World War, you had the Red Baron, for example. You had Battler Britain in the Second World War, and their exploits in their aircraft and so on. And when we moved, we were first in Madurai, then I studied in Trichy at Campion High School. And from there we moved to Madras, which is now Chennai. And when we moved to Madras, we stayed first in Thambaram near the Air Force Station. So my after school hours was spent on the top of the house. It was an independent bungalow with a tile roof. I'd be sitting on the apex of the tile roof watching the aircraft doing their maneuvers. So I would be able to recognize and say, okay, he's doing the Immelman turn. Okay, he's doing a side slip.
Wow.
He's going to dive, and so on and so forth. So both my brother and I used to sit there and watch all this. And the biggest thrill for us was to go to the Air Force Day at the Air Force Station and sit in the cockpit, of the fighter aircraft. Yeah. So I grew up wanting to be an Air Force pilot. and I did everything in high school to be prepared for it. I was individual champion athlete in school. I came first in the school, and everybody said they'll accept you in the National Defence Academy. That was my sole purpose in life, to join the Air Force. And when the date came for me to put in the application when I was 15 years old, and I was preparing it, my mother said, "What are you doing?" So I told her. She said, "No, you will not join the armed forces." So I was like a deer frozen in the headlights. All this time everybody had been very supportive, but when it came to the act, she said, "Nothing doing. You will die in the first war." And there was absolutely no shaking her. And I was not going to go against my mother's wishes. So it went by. I missed it.
From wanting to be an Air Force pilot to telling mesmerizing stories through media, through visual and through written formats. How did this happen? How did you come into the space that you are currently in? How did that transition happen for you?
I must go back a little bit to my roots. My father was professor and head of the English department at Madras University, and his wealth at home was books. So we grew up surrounded by 4,000 books of all subjects. So we grew up reading. Reading was a joy in those. There was no TV. The only thing we had was the radio, and the only thing you listened to was Radio Ceylon, Listener's Choice.
Okay.
Which was between a certain time in the evenings. So for that 1 hour we used to listen to radio. The rest of the time we were reading, if we were not outside playing. So, and my mother's interest was in art and history. So I read about great painters and great paintings. I studied their paintings in those books. We read about the history of man, the history of civilization by period, the Byzantine period, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution and all of that. So we grew up with this very wide perspective and the art of storytelling, because they were all condensed in such beautiful formats. And when we were in Chennai, my father as professor and head of the English department was invited often by the British Council and what was then called the USIS, the United States Information Service, which was a cultural thing in those days. And they would regularly screen movies at the USIS, British films at the British Council, and German films at the Max Miller Bhavan. And because my dad was who he is, we were always invited. So we went and watched these films, classic films, landmark films, and were mesmerized by the storytelling. So all these influences used to play in my mind. And then when I was in high school, my sister became a copywriter for Lintaz in Bombay.
Oh.
So when she came on holidays, she would, tell us these enthralling stories about writing copy for Fanta, for, all these drinks and for different products and what went behind it. So I used to listen to all of these stories and be quite mesmerized, So it was always a kind of an underlying passion. But after I was not allowed to join the Air Force, I was completely at sea. So I finished school, I came first in the school, I was individual champion, all of that, yes. But I was the guy who didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. So then my dad said, okay, you better do something till we figure out what you'd like to do. So I was enrolled in BCom at Loyola. And then I went and met the career counselor at the university. And he said, tourism is going to boom, so you should do hotel management.
This is after the BCom.
No, while I was doing the BCom.
While you were doing the BCom, okay.
I hadn't even finished the first semester. A few months into BCom, he said, you should do hotel management. So I applied to the Institute of Hotel Management, dropped out of Loyola and joined the 3-year course in hotel management.
Okay.
And ITC came in the final year, even before we finished our final exams. And we went through a series of interviews and viva voces and one-on-one interviews and group discussions and all that sort of thing. And they chose me out of a batch of 80. And I'm told that in the whole country, they selected 20 management trainees.
That year?
That year. In those days, out of something like 6,000 applications.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I did. I went and joined ITC as a management trainee. And the understanding was that I would be a hotel manager.
Okay.
But when we joined ITC at the Marriott Sheraton in Delhi, we had to go through every single department. And you started with garbage screening and worked your way up. It was an amazing experience. 3 days we screened garbage.
Wow.
Then you moved up to kitchen stewarding. You cleaned the cooking ranges. That's a different story anyway. But then I went to sales and marketing and I was suddenly at home. I said, hey, this is what I was meant to do, So then they told us if you are in the top 3 in the rank in the 20, you can ask for a career posting of your choice. So I went and met the people who were in charge and said, I want to be in marketing.
Was it a switch? Like, for example, just walk in one day and realize this is what I want to do? Or was it a series of events that took you to say, okay, this is my home, this is where I'm going to stay?
Yeah, I think that experience in sales and marketing and the exposure to what they were doing suddenly brought this conviction into me that, hey, this is what I need to be doing. I'm not a hotel operations guy, you know. By the way, in between they discovered that I'm a really good cook.
Okay.
I can cook pretty well. So the chef tried to get me to become a chef trainee.
Oh.
So he put a lot of pressure on me to become a chef. But I was not a back of the house guy, you know. Now, of course, chefs are, you know, celebrities in their own right. But in those days, it was more a behind the scenes thing. I said, no, that's not for me. Then I found my métier in marketing. So then I went and met the powers that be and said, I want a posting in marketing. So they were completely taken aback. And they said, but you're qualified in hotel management. Why would you want to do marketing? I said, yeah, but you've taken economics graduates and you're making them hotel managers. Yeah. So why can't the reverse be true?
Yeah.
They said, okay, that's true. So I was posted as a sales manager of a hotel the moment they felt I was ready. See, the training period was 18 months.
Oh, wow.
I was posted in 11.
Oh, wow.
Much before.
Much before the 80.
And I was only one of 2 people who were posted as the department head. I went as sales manager. All the others went as assistant manager to somebody.
Is working at that stage of that company, for example, ITC being such a huge conglomerate in itself, working at that level as a sales manager after being probably about 2 years into career, 2, 3, how long was it after graduation?
I graduated when I was 20.
20.
I became sales manager at 21.
Sales manager at 21. So, as someone who's a sales manager, and I'm assuming you also have a team, you also have other responsibilities at 21, would you want to talk about some of the mistakes that you did? Something that you learned really well, really quickly, and really fast so that you didn't have to repeat it ever again in your career?
Fortunately, I had a very, very, very good grounding in terms of perspective. And the ITC's management training is excellent. So we went equipped. But what I found really difficult was that, you know, I was by far the youngest manager there. People were in their 30s, their 40s, and you go into the head of department's meeting, and I don't look my age now. In those days, when I walked into a meeting, they say, who's this boy? And somebody would say, shh, he's a sales manager. It was like that, you know. So being accepted, but once they got talking to me and they realized what I could do, then the acceptance came in. But the initial thing was always, what's this guy doing here kind of a thing. Yeah, so that was a challenge. But I had a general manager, I won't name him, who was in his 40s. And apparently he took him 10 years of being a steward and restaurant manager and so on to become something like a F&B manager and eventually general manager. More than 10 years. And he resented the fact that I was a sales manager at 21. And when I arrived at the hotel to report to the general manager to say, I'm here to join duty, he kept me waiting for a long time. Then when I came in, he looked at me and first thing he said is, how old are you? So I said, sir, I'm 21. 21 years. You're a manager, yeah? I said, yes, sir, I've been posted here as a sales manager. And then he told me this. It took me 12 years to become manager. We'll see about this. And after that, he made my life miserable. So achieving too much too soon is also not a good thing, you know. But finally, my work spoke for itself. And although he did his best to hold me down, head office recognized the work I was doing and took me out from under him and gave me a promotion.
So would we say knowledge and the ability to be able to put that knowledge to use with good results?
It's not just knowledge. I think you have to be able to be flexible, to be able to learn quickly, to be willing to absorb. For example, Larry Malarkar, who was then the general manager marketing, sent out a format which was a format to develop your marketing plan for your hotel. It was a template. And I thought it was very well done. It actually captured my imagination. So I worked at it diligently over a week and I sent it to him. And apparently he thought it was the best marketing plan developed in the group. Now, it's another thing that he wrote and said so. And this general manager intervened and made sure I didn't get to see the letter. I didn't see it Until much later, Larry said, why didn't you reply to my letter? I said, what letter? He said, I wrote to you saying this is the best plan. I said, I never got it.
You never got the letter. That's getting there too early sometimes is also fateful.
No, but being able to recognize something that is of worth, like that template, apparently a lot of people didn't take it seriously. Saying, oh, we know what we're doing, why do we need to fill out all this? But it clarified your thinking and it put it down in executable steps. It prioritized your actions. I mean, it was very, very well thought through. So I did that diligently and then executed it. I mean, what's the point of a plan if you don't execute, right?
Makes sense. What happened after ITC? How long were you there with?
So I was with ITC for about 10 years.
Wow.
I moved from the hotel in Aurangabad, which in those days was quite small. I don't know how big it is now. As sales manager there, to the regional marketing office in Bombay. And I think in a year and a half, I became the number 2 in the regional marketing office. And we grew that office phenomenally. And then the regional manager left to become general manager marketing of a chain that was just beginning.
Okay.
And he made an offer to me I couldn't refuse as, what shall I say, brand manager. So I moved to that new group.
Okay.
For a while. And then ITC came to me and said, we want you back. So I rejoined ITC and I was made sales manager of the Sea Rock Sheraton in Bombay. That was a 400-room hotel and I was 27 years old.
I would love to learn a little bit more about the kind of campaigns, the kind of brands. While I understand where we come from, we are sitting in the Social Beat office, we are doing this in a digital advertising space. What brand or what marketing campaigns and sales campaigns were you running at the age of 27? Or were you even running anything?
Yeah. We were running, we had periodic food festivals at the hotel.
Okay.
So we used to have campaigns for the food festival. And I used to work with JWT and they used to come for meetings and we used to co-create. We'd look at what is the essence of this cuisine.
Okay.
And who maybe would best represent, the kind of target audience. So like that and what kind of lines would appeal to them. So we were very sensitive to the consumer right from the beginning. And it was very successful. So that's when my interest in advertising became, an interest and skill in advertising became honed.
Over the period of how many years of experience are we talking about right now? Probably 4 decades?
Yeah.
4 decades of experience.
More than 4 decades.
More than 4 decades of experience. How has the landscape of advertising changed for you? How was it, for instance, what are some of the early examples that you could think of for you specifically, and how has it changed for you right now?
In the early years, it was largely food campaigns, food festival campaigns, and say the hotel itself. And there was also times when we had to do hotel photography, which is a fascinating business because everything is about lighting to make that architecture come alive 3-dimensionally. So I learned all those things on the job. Mind you, when these things were being done, I wouldn't say as sales manager, I'll be in my office, you do it and show it to me afterwards. I'd be there with them, learning. So all that exposure helped. And then when I left ITC, I joined advertising, DDB Mudra.
Okay.
And went on to become general manager there. And we worked on some wonderful campaigns. So I worked on detergents, I worked on cycles, I worked on innerwear, I worked on a whole range of products. And with each of them, the dynamics of the market, the competition, the product benefits vis-a-vis the competition, the consumer insights, consumer expectations, consumer trends, and how you write them. How do you communicate to them in a way the consumer understands? All of these were very, very interesting learnings on that journey. For example, when I began in DDB Mudra, I was given charge of what was then considered a backwater. Although I was in Chennai, I was looking after Coimbatore.
Okay.
So we'd gone to premium mills, and at that time, the innerwear for men, the underwear, so to speak, that was big time, was VIP. And they had a very, very silly campaign, a guy in his underwear hitting the bad guy and the girl looking at him like this and all. It was very juvenile. And we always wondered, why do they do something like that? But when we met premium mills, they said they're launching a brand of innerwear for men, and it was called Riviera because it was French style, French cut. And it was really classy, that product. So that was a brand I started working on. And one of the challenges they had was they said we don't have huge advertising budgets. Can you tell us anything that will disrupt the market? So we got hold of some MBA students and got them to do research with consumers on how they buy underwear. And when they came back and showed us the results, and then we looked at our own experience, it struck us. In those days, one underwear would come in one packet.
Okay.
But you never went and bought one underwear, no?
Yeah, never. Not even now.
Yeah, you bought 4 or 6.
4 or 6, yeah.
So why would you put one underwear in one packet?
Yeah.
So we went back and told premium mills, pack Riviera in packs of 2, packs of 6. If it's 4, they can buy 2 packs. But do this so that you disrupt through packaging, which is convenient for the consumer, and price off because your cost of packaging is not high. So they did that, and then we did a campaign for Riviera, which was very sophisticated. You know, it showed a guy standing in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie, and it said, "The Riviera man," you know.
Okay.
And it talked about he wouldn't wear a tie that screamed for attention, but then he wouldn't wear a tie that you failed to notice. He's a Riviera man. He knows what he wants. Sales went up by 86%.
Wow.
And VIP launched the French cut.
French cut.
They launched the Frenchie and they changed the packaging to packs of 2 and 4. We, a challenger, forced the market leader to change. To me, that was a signature moment in my career.
Just to think about the fact that the challenger is actually moving ahead and forcing the market leader, I think that's something that I would love to hear more about. How is this from sending out MBA students to collect surveys and then relooking at the entire value proposition of what we are trying to do? How has that changed today in terms of medium of doing this? For example, I assume the fundamentals of the entire process remain the same as to A, B, C steps. How has the medium changed today? Do you see any difference in the kind of inputs and outputs that we are doing vis-a-vis internet?
See, what has not changed is the need for consumer insights and the need to understand the consumer as a person.
Okay.
Back in the day, there used to be this IMRB reports, and you said, you know, the consumers classified into SEC A, B, and C. SEC A is the most educated, highest earning. B is less educated, you know, more middle class. C is lower middle class, and so on and so forth, which is an amorphous mass. And it was all according to monthly household income. So how did you know who you were talking to? Let's say, for example, you were advertising a product for a certain kind of woman, and you went only by monthly household income. You could get it very wrong. For example, you have Savitri, who lives in Mylapore, which is a very traditional district in Chennai. She has long hair, which she oils. She has jasmine in her hair. She wears a sari. She's a homemaker. She lives in a joint family. She cooks for the family. She sleeps in her sari.
I just imagine the whole picture.
So monthly household income is a certain level. Then contrast that to Asha. She has short hair. She rides a kinetic Honda. She works in a travel agency. She sleeps in a nightie, and she and her husband have a nuclear home. Same monthly household income. The way you talk to Asha is completely different from the way you talk to Savitri. These are the insights that we learned. When we were handling detergents, we used to organize these group discussions with women where we were not even allowed in the room. We'd be listening on a speaker in a different room to them having the discussion about what their concerns are about clothes.
Okay.
And often it is not what the manufacturer thinks.
Okay.
For them, it's a labor of love to send the children to school looking their best. There's emotion involved. It's not a daily chore.
Interesting.
So we did a commercial showing children going to school, and 2 kids, one whose shirt and the other whose shirt is a little dull. And these 2 mothers who are friends waiting for the children to come out, and they watch the 2 coming. And the child whose clothes are dull says, you know, how come you managed to get the shirt so white? You know, how do you do that? She says, it's simple, I use Henko. She says, but how does Henko do that? And then she explains in consumer terms. And of course, you have a product window and you have the graphics, and the brand took off. Consumer insight. Now, that hasn't changed, but the mediums that people are spending time on has changed. Television is dwindling, digital is going up, OTT platforms are going up. Newspaper readership, you know, it's not going down like in the West, but in the West it's a sunset industry.
Yeah.
Whereas here, reading online is going up. You speak to many of the young people in our office, they don't even read the newspaper, which is not a good thing if you ask me, because they're not well informed. But yeah, these are the kind of trends we need to be on top of to be able to know what's happening with consumer behavior and what influences are they going through. I mean, the rise of influencers, for example.
I was going to go there next.
If you look at it, I'll take you back, say, before the advent of the smartphone, what did you have for taking pictures? Cameras.
Cameras, small.
And very few people had cameras. So you ask the average person, hey, come and stand for a picture. They're camera shy. No. I don't look good. I don't want to take it now, and all that sort of thing. Then came the advent of smartphones, and people started taking pictures of other people, and then they discovered the selfie, and they became mesmerized with the selfie. They were taking selfies all the time and experimenting with how they look and posting it online.
Yeah.
And then you had TikTok. So the leap from a selfie to a video was a very short leap, and that's what enabled influencers.
Where is the industry of influencers going though? Is it going to be live commerce? Is that something that we are looking at in the future?
I think they will all coexist.
They will all coexist.
They will all coexist because live commerce is an impulse thing. You see the influencer talk about it and click here, buy that. There are people who do that. There are people who do a little more research. You know, they will scroll through the whole thing on Myntra, on Amazon. They will check prices. They will check seasons. They will check. If you look at what Google says, see, it's easy to say, you know, the marketing funnel, awareness, consideration, and the conversion. It doesn't work like that. It looks like a piece of spaghetti, you know, because they go checking out so many things now because the platforms allow that. You look at reviews on YouTube, you look at reviews on Quora, depending on what you're buying, of course. So the consumer journey today is very convoluted.
Is this now a problem that has come to being as a problem of abundance? So because I have so many choices now in terms of trying to be able to buy through certain things. Like for example, even now, I think OTT, when they air a movie now, they will start adding tags into the furnitures and then they'll be like, okay, you can click on this through Netflix. And that's something I read today morning and I was flabbergasted at how this can be possible. Is this a problem to be solved as a problem of abundance? Because you have so many options now to be able to, as a media marketer. How does one traverse through this if somebody young is coming out into this universe, trying to get in their shoe in for the next 10 years? How are they going to traverse the marketing universe now?
Then we come back to the fundamentals. Go back to consumer insights. Focus on consumer needs and what they want. Focus on consumer behavior. And focus on building a brand. You know, you can build a brand on Instagram and still get people to buy. But you're getting them to build a preference for that particular brand. If you don't do that, if you focus only on sales by all these opportunities to see, sales will spike for a while, but you can't sustain it in the long term. Look at the number of D2C brands in clothing. I'm telling you, most of them will disappear because they're not building a brand. They are living on impulse purchase. That will work up to a point, but beyond that, and now they're getting greedy. They think D2C means you can do super premium pricing. So you find very ordinary jackets for 12,000 bucks
at a jacked up price
with a brand that you don't even know. And why in the world would you do that? Consumers are not dumb.
Why are the consumers buying a 1200 jacket that they don't really know about? Because I'm assuming the premium pricing is for the customer who's willing to buy for this, and there are people who are willing to buy, and that's why the price point is sustained.
There is a process of graduation of a consumer where through a process of exposure they become more sophisticated and discerning. When they are not sophisticated and discerning, they'll think 12,000 rupees must be fancy and they'll buy it.
There's a famous example of increase your price point, increase value, show value that this is more better. Makes sense.
But it's a short-term game.
It's a short-term game. So for example, I want to be now into the space that I want to be in media. I just graduated college. So for me, the fundamentals would be build brand. Is that what you're saying? Build brand over everything else. Distribution can happen. You can have mass comm, you can have insights, but building brand is something that's very important.
Yeah. What I am saying is if you want to be a marketer, your fundamentals must be solid.
Okay.
The rest of those are a means of reaching people. And there you need to understand trends, you need to know what is on the ascendant, what is descending, because you need to be able to ride those trends to be able to reach people to get your message across. But the message, the story is of paramount importance. You need to have the consumer insight and what is it that will appeal to them? What is their basic need? The need could be emotion. It could be an emotional need. How do you cater to that? And then a lot of it happens because of extremely good storytelling, you know. And if you're able to build that brand consistently over time, no matter what the fluctuations are in terms of mediums and this, that and the other, the brand will continue.
I definitely want to have a conversation about how to tell the best possible story ever. But I think we'll keep that for part 2 whenever we do have a part 2. I think that's all the time we have today, David, to be able to wrap this up. I want to sincerely thank you for spending the time that you did having this conversation with us. I think a lot of it has been a learning for me as much as it has been a learning for everybody else in the room as well, I think, hopefully. But any last things that you would like to leave with us before we end the show today?
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be part of this. And I must say that I thoroughly enjoyed sharing as much as you hopefully enjoyed hearing.
I did.
And I'd be happy to do this again.
I did. I'm assuming that's an honest answer. Yeah. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure doing this.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.